What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Hashtag AskGSM, episode 233 here today for May 16th, 2018. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. And as always, if you want to send in a question to the show, tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but not least, be sure to drop a comment down below in this very video in the comment section, of course, and I'll include your question in next week's edition. So anyway, guys, let's get started here without further ado with Jared B. from YouTube. His first question was, what books do you like to read? And by the way, I usually put on Twitter and on Facebook that the question has to be, it doesn't have to be, but I usually ask for wrestling related questions. But as you could probably tell from the last number of episodes, if you send in a question that's not wrestling related specifically, if it has to do with books or movies or Avengers or Infinity Wars, whatever, I'm totally okay with that. As long as it doesn't have to do with politics or some shit, because I really do not care to talk about that here on the show, or religion or anything along those lines. Otherwise, it's all free game. But anyway, from Jared, what books do I like to read? I've talked about this before here on the show, many years ago here on Hashtag, but largely the wrestling autobiographies. I'll read other books. I'm reading a decent book right now called The Last Magazine by Michael Hastings. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's not really an autobiography. It's more of a fiction book. I think it's nonfiction. I'm pretty sure it's fiction. But it has to do with a magazine, print, and all this other type of stuff, a newspaper organization. And I'm into news, obviously. I'm a journalist, so it intrigues me. My uncle got me that as a gift for, I think for Christmas a couple months ago, or as an Easter gift. I think it was a Christmas gift. Anyway, I'm reading that currently, but usually I do read the wrestling autobiographies. I just got finished reviewing Justin Roberts' book, Best Seat in the House, on the Random Video Blog last Friday. Great book. If you want to know the inner workings of WWE from someone who used to work there and someone who loves the wrestling the pro wrestling industry and WWE specifically, that's the book for you. It's a great eye-opening book, a lot of interesting details in there. That I've read recently. I read Pat Patterson's book last year, Daniel Bryan's book, which came out years ago, but I only finished reading it a few months ago. That was a great book. Chris Jericho's books are always great. I know you're not asking for recommendations for wrestling books, but largely I do read the wrestling autobiographies because that's what intrigues me the most. But I will read other books from time to time as well. Emmanuel A. from YouTube, his question was, have you heard about Xavier Woods and Tyler Breeze's playthrough of SmackDown vs. Raw 2006's GM mode on Woods' Up Up Down Down channel? I just thought you'd be interested since you've talked about your own history with the SVR GM mode before. They've currently done 5 episodes with uploads being every Thursday. I have heard of it. I have seen it on YouTube in my suggested videos tab. I think I checked out part of the first episode. I've not followed along since. But you are right, though. I am a big GM mode guy. I will say this. I think SVR 07's GM mode is better than 06's. But 08's is easily the worst. So it's 07, 06, 08 for me. But 08 is still decent too because they do have CM Punk, they have MVP, and a few others that you can't play as in the other games. But 06 also has Chris Jericho and Christian, so there are trade-offs there. And I don't think, is Big Show in? Big Show's in 07. He's not in 08 though. He's in 06 and 07. Anyway, I have seen it. I have not watched the episodes in their entirety so far. But it is cool they're doing that because obviously he does host a gaming channel. They're playing SVR 07, or 06 rather, with the GM mode. And it seems like they're having fun with it. So I have to check out more of the episodes at some point down the road. But from what I've seen so far, it looks like they're having fun with it and it's pretty cool to watch. Joe M. from YouTube. Would Raw be wise to turn a positive into a positive with the Universal Championship not around by making the tag team titles the biggest attraction on the show, similar to how SmackDown did last year with the Usos and New Day feud, with teams like The Revival, the Deleters of Worlds, Breezango, Authors of Pain, and more? I think Raw would be foolish not to have at least one great tag team feud, as opposed to authority figure storylines and feuds no one cares about, like Roman Reigns and Jinder Mahal. Well, anything but, with the focus being on anything but Jinder and Roman, I think is a positive. And like you said, the Universal Championship is not around. And I don't foresee it being around for the foreseeable future, at least not until SummerSlam. I know there's rumors, and we'll talk about that a little later on in the show, that Brock may hold the championship until WrestleMania 35. And if that's the case, God save us all. But in this case, let's say Brock is not around for another few more months. And I don't assume that he will be. And like you said, Roman and Jinder being the top feud on the show does absolutely nothing for me. The match will just not be exciting. the characters themselves don't excite me in the slightest either. Jinder is a very one-dimensional character. Roman is very heavily damaged and badly booked. So what do you do? I think building around Seth Rollins might be your answer, because that he is easily the most popular, along with Braun Strowman, guy on the show right now. Building around Rollins, he has been the highlight of the program for at least several weeks now, with the IC title open challenge and his feud with The Miz, and then Finn Balor, and now a few others. So if not Rollins, but focusing on a tag team feud would be cool. I don't think Matt and Bray are that act to build around, though. I love Matt and Bray as a tag team act. I love them as a tandem and as Raw Tag Team Champions. I don't think they're an act that you can build your show around, though. I just don't think they're not in the same vein as the Usos anyway. Because you're right, the Usos and the New Day for a long time there late last year were my favorite feud going on SmackDown. Even when AJ and Owens were going at it, AJ and a few others, I don't know. I mean, even when AJ was WWE champion, I truly thought that the top... I mean, actually, AJ became champion after the New Day Usos feud ended. But still, even when AJ was like US champion, I still thought the Usos New Day feud was the best thing going on the Blue Brand. They had amazing matches. The matches on TV in between their pay-per-view feuds, their pay-per-view matches, were also pretty good. So what on Raw could be the equivalent to the Usos New Day feud? Like, that's my question. And you have a lot of talented tag teams on Raw, but none of them are really worth building around. Like you said, there's a lot of good tag teams. Breezango, not an act that you can build around. Authors of Pain have barely been on TV. The Revival are great. They've been wasted for months now, if not their entire main roster run. I know injuries got in the way of that, but they've been very disappointing lately. Again, I like the Deleters of Worlds, but it's like they're not an act that I feel like can have a strong series of matches with any team on that show. They're more so character-based than they are skilled in the ring. And Wyatt and Hardy, not to say they're bad wrestlers or anything, but as an act, they aren't a tag team that you can build around on Raw. At least not in my opinion. So I don't think making tag teams the primary focus on Raw would be the best idea. But then again, anything but Roman and Jinder I think is a plus. So it's worth a shot, but I don't think it's within WWE. Honestly, I mean, even the Usos New Day feud, as great as that feud was, they never showcased it as the feud on SmackDown. Not once did one of their matches main event a pay-per-view. Even when they had the brand exclusive events, not once did they main event a pay-per-view or even an episode of SmackDown. Not once. And I doubt they would do the same thing on Raw. So I like your thinking there, but like I understand what you're saying, but what feud would you do? Like, they have the Revival, they have the Deleters of Worlds. Yeah, we just saw that twice, and Matt and Bray won. Matt and Bray they won both times against the Revival, so that's not really a feud you can go back to right now. I know they're kind of teasing the Deleters of Worlds versus the B Team. That's a tag team match, a tag team feud. You'll have main event Raws and stuff. I don't really know about that. Again, Roman and Jinder is not much better, but it's like the B Team versus Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt is not a main event level program at all. And WWE very rarely showcases tag team wrestling anyway. But if they didn't do it on SmackDown with Usos and New Day, despite how great their matches were, they never once main evented a show. Not to my memory anyway, an episode of SmackDown or a Hell in the Cell pay-per-view or a Battleground or anything like that. Then why would they do it on Raw? Like, that's my only 2 cents on that. So maybe at some point, if the focus is not on the tag teams, it might as well be on Seth Rollins. Because like I said, he's the hottest thing going on Raw right now as Intercontinental Champion. So in the absence of the Universal Championship, you might as well make that IC title the top title on Raw. And I said that a year ago when Lesnar first won the belt from Goldberg at WrestleMania, because I knew Lesnar wasn't going to be around. He'd be around only every few months. So I said that even a year ago, and I'll say it right now. If the Universal Championship is not going to be a staple on the Raw roster, they might as well start focusing on the Intercontinental Championship, being the primary title to fight for on the Raw brand. Joe's second question, thoughts on Buddy Murphy's heel run so far? I've been a fan. I think he's been doing a really good job as the lead heel in the Cruiserweight division. I know there was some concern. I forgot who asked the question a few months ago or a few weeks ago about Buddy Murphy being a heel. He was doing so well as a babyface. Listen, 205 Live right now needs credible heels. I'm not buying into... I mean, I like Drew Gulak. He can be a top heel on that show, and he arguably is. But like Tony Nese, who gives a shit? Arya Daivari, who gives a shit? A lot of these people have been beaten into the ground. And once Neville took off and Enzo failed as champion, he just was not a compelling top villain for that show because the guy sucked in the ring. They kind of were devoid of top heels on 205 Live. So I'm glad Buddy Murphy's kind of filling in for that role. And he's been a good heel so far, too. He's having great matches. That Mustafa Ali match a few weeks ago was awesome. He had a really, really good match not too long ago as well. I think with Kalisto. Might have been right before WrestleMania, but that was a great match, too. And I'm sure Buddy versus Cedric coming up in, I think, 2 weeks' time on 205 Live should also be really, really good. So I've been a fan. I'm really glad the guy's getting a chance because he never really got a chance to shine in NXT. And I've said this before as well, but in NXT, I kind of saw some potential in him because I've seen him work before and I heard all the things about him on the indie scene, like, oh, he's such a great worker. We never really got to see any of that in NXT. And I liked, not really the name, like the name Buddy is almost as dumb as Dolph Ziggler. But just in terms of his in-ring work, he was a fresh face. He's been a fresh face in 205 Live. But in NXT, he was paired off with, what's his name, Wesley Blake. And they were a fine tag team, but nothing special at all. And really, the central focus, the real centerpiece of that tag team was Alexa Bliss. It wasn't Buddy Murphy or Wesley Blake. So I'm glad Buddy Murphy's finally getting a chance to shine on his own. He was not going to get that chance in NXT with how deep their talent pool is right now. So you might as well bring him up to a brand where he can be built around. And probably I would think Hideo Itami could be a top heel on that show as well, but they're not really doing much with him right now, but whatever. Joe's third question here. Speaking of whom, Mustafa Ali, with all the great matches he's had so far this year, including his one with Buddy Murphy last week, do you think there's an argument to be made that Mustafa Ali has been WWE's best in-ring performer of the year so far? Absolutely, you can make that argument. I am not going to argue with you there. I mean, I could argue about him being the best in-ring performer, but being among the top in-ring performers in WWE so far in 2018, without a question. Without a question. Like you said, the matches with Cedric, the matches with Buddy, you had a couple matches during the Cruiserweight tournament that we had a couple months back that were great as well. He had another match with Buddy Murphy during the tournament that was also really, really good. His match with Drew Gulak. He's had a couple matches with Drew Gulak recently, and both were brilliant. So yeah, Mustafa Ali has really been slept on for a while now. I've always said he's not my favorite cruiserweight. I like Cedric a lot more. But Mustafa Ali is also really, 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 really good. And he's been delivering consistently week in and week out on 205 Live. And on the pay-per-views all year round. So you can absolutely make the argument that Mustafa Ali is among the best in-ring performers in WWE this year. In my opinion, the guy that I would say has been the top best in-ring performer in WWE so far in 2018 is Seth Rollins. That would be my argument. I think Ali would be a close second. But with Rollins, between the showing that he had in the Elimination Chamber, the showing that he had in that gauntlet match, the Raw before the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, which was outstanding when he lasted an hour in the ring, between those two showings, the match at WrestleMania, the triple threat match, the matches he had with Miz, with Finn Balor, recently with even Kevin Owens on Raw, Rollins has been the guy in WWE in 2018. In terms of popularity, firing on all cylinders, just everything. He's just in every single aspect, being over, having great matches, maintaining momentum, winning championships. The guy has it all right now. So I would argue that 2018, up to this point in May of 2018, he's been the guy in WWE and has been the best in-ring performer, even more so than AJ Styles, who is also phenomenal, of course, but his matches in the last couple of months have not been bad. I don't think they've been as great as we were expecting, like the Nakamura matches or even the Owens and Zayn matches, but I would give that top spot to Seth Rollins, with Ali being a close second. Brandon A. from YouTube, what do you love the most about living in Connecticut, and what do you hate the most about living there? Whew, I mean, this question is very timely. First, I'll start with what I hate most about living here in Connecticut, because as of this recording, it's Wednesday morning, of course, last night we lost power. I don't know if you heard about it, but here in the Northeast, specifically here in Connecticut, I don't know how far it stretched into Mass or New York, whatever, we had this pretty bad storm. It wasn't as bad here where I live. In other parts of the state, it was pretty bad. We lost power nonetheless. There was like a fucking, at least where I live, not really more so Connecticut, but it's just where I live here in the state. It's by like a lot of woodsy areas and shit like that. A transformer blew up. So one of like the electricity boxes, whatever the fuck you want to call it, I think it's called the transformer, that's what I was told. A tree fell on it and it exploded, essentially. And we lost power instantly. And as of right now, I mean, obviously I'm recording this and I'm putting this up on YouTube. I'm over at my dad's house where I have power and electricity and Wi-Fi and all that other stuff. I might be staying here for a few days because it looks like, according to a message that I heard this morning from the electricity company, according to the company, like the power company, whatever, we might not get we might not get power back for at least another few days, which is fucking terrible. Especially after all the awful weather we had a couple months ago. I don't know if I talked about that here on the show, but the snowstorms that we had back in it was like a week-to-week thing. I mean, I literally had classes canceled every single week, like every Wednesday for a straight month because of the fucking weather and how bad it was. It was really bad. This is like the 4th or 5th time I've lost power this year, and it's never this bad. It's never this bad, but between the rainstorms, the snowstorms, and everything else we've gotten in 2018, it's been a bad year for weather. And I've lost power so many times, and it's starting to piss me off. I was literally thinking last night, like, where else can I move where this will not be as big of an issue? That said, the weather is easily the worst part about living here in Connecticut. The fact that there's not much to do compared to, like, Massachusetts or New York or whatever. That doesn't really bother me because I'm not really the type of person to go out partying or doing this or that every single weekend anyway. So I don't really give a shit about that there's not much around me to do here in Connecticut anyway. Not like a big tourist attraction place. I don't really give a shit about that. So it's really the weather that bothers me the most about living here in Connecticut or in the Northeast just in general. Because the winter's going to be pretty bad in terms. I mean, it's not nearly as bad as like fucking Canada. I don't want to sound like it's the worst thing in the world, but the amount of snow that we get here is ridiculous. And the amount of times we've lost power this year is also ridiculous. Anyway, in terms of what I like about living here in Connecticut, and I was thinking about this about a year ago, because obviously for a while I was stationed in Massachusetts, going to school in the Boston area for the better part of the year. And I would get to go to shows at, the TD Garden in Boston and a few shows in Lowell and stuff. And that was great, but if there were ever any shows in New York, like in Madison Square Garden or the Barclays Center, I couldn't go. Because from Massachusetts, it's a hell of a ride. And it's not worth it. Not worth the drive. It's just too big of a drive, too long of a drive. So that kind of bothered me. But now that I'm here back in Connecticut, living at home for right now, I can go to shows in Massachusetts if I want to. I've been to a few shows in the last year in the Lowell area. And I can also go to shows in the New York area, too. I can go to a show, I think like late last year, I went to a Lowell NXT house show. And then a few months after that, I went to a show in New York City. I went to Final Battle, the Ring of Honor pay-per-view in Manhattan. So I can kind of go bounce from place to place and also go to shows here in Connecticut. So I'm like within the middle of New York and Boston. I like that a lot. So, and those are usually the two biggest markets anyway for pro wrestling. So if there's a great pay-per-view or a great show going on in Massachusetts, I can make it. If there's a show going on in New York and like Brooklyn or New York City, I can go to that too. So I like being stationed here in Connecticut so I get the best of both worlds, in addition to everything else that goes on here in CT. And there's a number of shows I like to go to here in Connecticut, from Northeast Wrestling to Raw. Like, if I was still at school, as of like right now, a month ago, I would not have been able to go to the Superstar Shakeup, because I would have been at school in Massachusetts. And I would not have driven home for just a random episode of Raw. I mean, it was not a random episode, it was the Superstar Shakeup, but I was very happy it happened when it did because I was able to go. So anyway, that's the pros and cons of living here in CT. Brandon's second question, what botch was funnier, Kalisto's Lucha Things promo or the Titus World slide? Oh, that's a good question. Both were pretty great. Both will be remembered for years to come. The Titus World slide thing was like, wow, the chances of that happening are astronomical, and it was hilarious. But I think the Lucha Things promo was just way better, and it had me cracking up for days, because I remember watching that with John, and it was on like the post show for like the WWE draft a few years ago in 2016, and it was like, what the hell did we just watch? We had to go back and watch it again, because like Kalisto swore, he's like, oh fuck this, because he messed up his promo. It was one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen in my life, because Kalisto genuinely botched this promo, and he was super frustrated about it. I've never seen that before on a WWE show. So it was super great, and I think it's still on the network if you want to go back and watch it, in addition to being on YouTube and stuff. The Titus World slide thing was cool too, obviously that was hilarious, but I think the Kalisto Lucha Things promo was just so bad, And I've never seen a promo botched so much that a person got frustrated and walked off because the promo wasn't going their way. I've never seen that before, so I'd have to go with the Kalisto Lucha Things promo being the funnier botch in my opinion. His third question here, what do you think of All In selling out in less than half an hour? And do you think this event will impact pro wrestling in some way long term? I think it has to. Well, first of all, it's an amazing feat. I honestly, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, I didn't really think they wouldn't sell it out. I didn't think they would sell it out in 30 minutes. I don't think anyone thought they would sell it out in 30 minutes. I thought they would sell maybe half the seats, if not 3/4 of the arena. And I mean, obviously there was like the tickets on StubHub and shit like that. So did they really, did they sell all the tickets? Yeah, technically they did. They did sell all the tickets. Will it be a sold out, jam-packed stadium? I'm sure like 90% of it will be filled. The whole thing? I'm not sure. It remains to be seen because of all the StubHub shit. That's just the way that people are. But by and large, that's really only like 5% of the ticket sales. Largely, they have sold the entire thing out, which is pretty amazing for a show that does not feature any WWE talent. Obviously, they have some Ring of Honor talent, New Japan talent. They have some of the biggest free agents in wrestling right now between Rey Mysterio, Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, the entire Bullet Club, pretty much everyone under the sun that has some sort of notoriety in pro wrestling right now. That's not in WWE. And they have, I don't know if they have any TNA guys, but for the most part, they have a lot of Ring of Honor stop names, a lot of New Japan stop names. But still, this was built on the Bullet Club name because they were the first people confirmed. Cody Rhodes, Marty Scurll, the Young Bucks, Adam Page, those guys did this. And everyone else was really just the cherry on top. So it's an amazing feat for a show that is not WWE sponsored. It's kind of backed by Ring of Honor, but it's not a Ring of Honor show. And Ring of Honor has had some pretty big stadiums. I think they had one of their most jam-packed shows. I think it was either over WrestleMania weekend this year or last year, or maybe both. I think the WrestleMania weekend show they did this year for the Supercard of Honor show had their highest attendance of all time. So Ring of Honor is getting up there too, but this is not a Ring of Honor show, and they still outsold Ring of Honor from what it looks like. So again, that's a pretty unprecedented accomplishment. And it goes to show, could this event impact pro wrestling in some form or fashion in the future long term? Absolutely. Because it proves that there is a market, that there is interest in pro wrestling that's not WWE. And obviously there's a lot of people like me that watch WWE religiously, but also support the indies and would go to the show if I could. It's in fucking Chicago in a few months. But still, the fact that they're not WWE and they sold out pretty much the entire arena is huge. That is huge. So it goes to show that you do not have to have the WWE name attached to your show in order to do really, really well. And indie shows have also been getting bigger, not only in just England and stuff where indie wrestling has been hot for a while now, but like here in the States too, a lot of indie events are doing a lot better than anyone would have anticipated. Progress, when he went a few months ago, or like not a few months ago at this point, it was like back in August, it jam-packed an entire arena, at least 1,000 people. It was pretty fucking crazy. It was a terrible arena to pack that many people inside. We were like fucking sardines in there. It was so hot. But still, it went to show that Progress is a hot ticket right now, especially here in the U.S. New Japan is no different. So I do think it could have some sort of lasting impact on pro wrestling, showing that WWE is not the be-all, end-all in pro wrestling right now. I'm pretty sure that's been evident for a while. But, with like New Japan and Lucha and stuff like that. But New Japan is pretty primarily based out of Japan. And they've done a decent amount of shows here in the U.S. as well, and they've done really, really well, but not on a consistent basis. And this isn't just a one-time event. Could it be brought back in the future, down the road, and do as well? That remains to be seen. But in terms of selling out all the tickets, pretty much every single ticket in the matter of 30 minutes is huge and cannot be understated because it's a pretty amazing thing. I hate to keep on repeating myself, but it really should not be, understated that this is a huge milestone for pro wrestling, and this was built on the Bullet Club, and they deserve all the credit in the world for it. The next question from Brandon. I know the MCU has ruled 2018 so far, but did you see A Quiet Place or Ready Player One? If so, what were your thoughts in those films? I thought both were awesome and get overshadowed by the MCU movies. I have not seen like a lot of great movies so far in 2018. I've seen a number of really, really good ones, but not a lot of like amazing ones. The same way that Infinity War I thought was amazing. And I also like Black Panther a lot, but I don't think it was as great as many other people were saying it was. But nonetheless, I did not see A Quiet Place. We've had that at my movie. I think we've had that at the movie theater for a while now, if I'm not mistaken. We've had it there for I don't know, at least a month or so. And I think we still have A Quiet Place. I don't think we got rid of it, unless I'm mistaken, which is pretty, again, amazing. But anyway, Ready Player One I did see, and that was a great movie. I really, really enjoyed Ready Player One because it had a lot of like the video game aspects and a lot of 80s elements and stuff like that. So I did enjoy Ready Player One a lot. A Quiet Place, I heard it was great. Scary movies aren't really my thing. I know it's not really that scary. It's PG-13. I might check it out at some point. I did hear good things about it. My brother saw it. He said he liked it. Ready Player One, though, I did see. So that one I can't speak to. That one I did like a lot. Because, again, because of the video game stuff, the 80s stuff. Obviously, you guys know I'm a huge Back to the Future fan. And that had a lot of Back to the Future elements involved in it. So I really, really enjoyed that one. But yeah, Ready Player One is probably one of the better movies I've seen so far in 2018. I don't know what else I've seen other than those movies, though. You know what? I did see Rampage. I did see Blockers. Again, I would put those in the category of like very good, not great. I thought Ready Player One was great. I thought Infinity War was awesome, and I thought Black Panther was great too. Infinity War still takes the cake as my favorite movie of 2018 so far. I've seen it 4 times by this point, which is crazy, I know. More times than I've seen any movie in the theaters, which is just unbelievable. But anyway, Ready Player One, though, great movie, well worth checking out. I don't know when it goes on DVD. I know we just lost it at my movie theater like a couple of weeks ago, right when Infinity War came out. But pretty big movie. Ready Player One was a lot of fun, and I would definitely rewatch it because it had a lot of great storytelling elements and a lot of great callbacks to some great films of the 80s and 90s. His next question, rank these Eddie Guerrero matches versus Brock Lesnar at No Way Out 2004, versus Rey Mysterio at WrestleMania 21, versus Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 20, and Los Guerreros versus Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit versus Edge and Rey Mysterio at Survivor Series 2002. So I would rank it as such. I think the Brock match cannot be topped. All the matches you named are great. I think the Brock match takes the cake just because of the moment of him beating Brock, and the match itself was really, really good, with like the David versus Goliath story that they told, and the crowd was amazing, and the moment was just unforgettable and spectacular. So you got to go with the Brock match at number 1. I think that goes without saying. The other 3 can be interchangeable, but this is the list. This is the way that I would put them at, from best to worst. And not to say that the last match is the worst. It's just the weakest of the 4, in my opinion. So the Brock match first. Then the Kurt Angle match. I was never the biggest fan of that match, but you cannot deny that it's a great match from WrestleMania 20 for the WWE Championship. And the finish was really, really clever, very well done. The crowd was into it. It was a Matt classic, just a Matt classic from WrestleMania's history between Angle and Guerrero. So I would put that at number 2. And a big one for Eddie, too, to have retained the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. It would have been cooler had he won the match. I mean, like, had he won the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. But the Brock Lesnar match, I think, would have been better off in Mania. They wanted to fast forward it so they could do, or rush it so they could do Brock and Goldberg at Mania, whatever. But Angle and Eddie was also very, very good. Third match, I would do the tag team match. This is where it kind of gets tough because I think the Ray match is great, but the reason I put the Ray WrestleMania match last is because it really didn't have much of a story. They were the WWE Tag Team Champions at the time, and they had a match at WrestleMania for the sake of having a match because they had nothing left to do. They had nothing else to do. So that match easily comes in last. I mean, again, it was very well wrestled. It was a great way to kick off WrestleMania 21, and I love that show. But I think they would have better matches down the road. I love the SummerSlam match. I thought the Great American Bash match was also very good, as was the Judgment Day match. So they had better matches a little later on in 2005, so that's why I put that last. That's why I put the tag team title match at number 3. I thought that was a great match, an awesome showcase for tag team wrestling, and a great way to kind of culminate the SmackDown 6 storyline they were doing at that point with all these 3 tag teams fighting over the tag team titles at Survivor Series, which was another awesome show. So again, from best to worst, Brock Lesnar number 1 from No Way Out 2004. Kurt Angle from WrestleMania 20 at number 2. You have the Guerreros versus Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit versus Edge and Rey Mysterio from Survivor Series 2002 at number 3. And Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio from WrestleMania 21 at number 4. Mark S. from Facebook, his first question was, if Riddick Moss and Tino Sabatelli do break up, who would you have as the heel and who as the face? It doesn't even matter at this point because they both got hurt. Riddick Moss got hurt right after Tino Sabatelli did. So Tino got hurt, I think, at a live show, at a house show a couple weeks back. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was a torn pec. So he's going to be out for a while. Then it's like, okay, so Tino's big push goes down the drain. And I like Tino a lot. I don't really care too much for Riddick Moss. Tino Sabatelli's pretty good, though. So he got hurt. Then I'm thinking, fuck, okay, at least they can push Riddick in the meantime. Riddick got hurt, too. The guy just got hurt like a week ago at an NXT house show. I forgot what it was. It might have been a leg injury or a shoulder injury. Whatever it was, it's being estimated he's going to be out for at least a number of months. So they're both on the shelf. So it doesn't even matter who's the heel, who's the face, because the feud's not happening. But if I had to choose, I think they're both better off as heels. But if I had to choose, I think Tino would be the better heel. I think Riddick Moss is also a natural heel. But I think with Tino, the guy just screams heel. How do you cheer a guy who looks like that? He looks like a fucking douche. And he isn't a douche. We saw him on Breaking Ground. He seems like a really, really nice guy. But he has that look of a guy like, Jesus Christ, I want to boo him. You know? And he has that attitude of a guy that I want to boo. Like Baron Corbin. How do you cheer a guy like that? And maybe early on in his NXT career, he was a babyface. But the guy's a natural heel. As is Tino Sabatelli. But again, doesn't even matter right now because they're both hurt anyway. So, whatever. Mark's second question. Given the current state of the NXT Championship picture involving Johnny Gargano, Ciampa, and Aleister Black, from those three wrestlers, who would you be? What would your preferred match be for the next NXT Takeover with either 2 or 3 of them in it? It looks like they're going to do Gargano and Ciampa one-on-one. I haven't looked at the Takeover card, the spoiler card for Takeover Chicago. But it looks like they're doing Gargano Ciampa one-on-one. Now, I would do Gargano Ciampa Black 3-way in a triple threat. Again, that's what my preferred match would be. But it does look like they're setting up Gargano and Ciampa one-on-one. Who that leaves for Black, I'm not really sure, but I am excited to find out in the coming weeks of NXT TV. Mark's next question. Who do you think at the moment should dethrone Brock Lesnar, and would you place a stipulation on the match? Again, like I think I said this last week, but I do think Seth Rollins would be a great fit to beat Brock Lesnar for that belt just because he's the most over guy in the company right now. If I had to choose between Rollins and Braun, I would go with Rollins. We've seen Braun and Brock. The matches were not that good. I guess you can go back to the feud and say like, oh, my one last shot, blah, blah, blah. Make it like a no disqualification match. I guess that would make it better, but at this point, that ship sailed. If they were going to put the belt on Braun, and they should at some point, if they were going to put the belt on Braun, they should have done it at SummerSlam, or at No Mercy, or at the Royal Rumble, but they didn't. They missed their opportunity. Time to move on. At this point, I would give the belt to Seth Rollins. The guy is the most over guy, in addition to Braun, on the Raw roster. He's great in the ring, and he has yet to really get a rematch, get another run with a championship since Money in the Bank 2016, almost 2 years ago. And I think it would have been a great story had he gone for the belt in Chicago. That's not happening, obviously. But I do think Rollins, in the long term, whether he's Intercontinental Champion at that point or not, should be the one to beat Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship. I know, obviously, Roman will probably be the one to take the title, but logically, in my opinion, I do think Rollins makes more sense. The next question from Mark. What do you think of the option of adding a past female star or John Cena to either of the Money in the Bank ladder matches this year to create the undrafted scenario so they could cash in on either champion? I know people were talking about that when John Cena was rumored to have won the Royal Rumble a few months ago. He was a pretty strong candidate to win the Rumble. Thank God that didn't happen, and they went with Nakamura instead. But people were thinking, okay, what if Cena wins here? And he has the option, because he's not on Raw officially, and he's not on SmackDown officially, so he could technically go to either brand and vie for the World Championship. I'm glad they didn't go that option. They didn't go that route just because Cena as the Royal Rumble winner, been there, done that. Cena as Mr. Money in the Bank, same thing. Been there, done that. Who gives a shit? He doesn't need it. I hope not. I'm done with John Cena coming back for like a fucking one-off appearance for no real reason at all. Remember that time he returned at Survivor? I mean, I know they needed people for that match because they changed plans because they put AJ in the main event of the pay-per-view or against Brock or whatever at Survivor Series last year. But Cena came back for Team SmackDown. Why? Literally served no purpose whatsoever. He was on Team SmackDown. I think he eliminated like Samoa Joe before getting beaten by Finn Balor. Or maybe the other way around. I know he interacted with those two. And that was it. Didn't set up any future feuds or anything. That was it. Maybe for Joe, because I know that feud was supposed to be like the interim feud for Cena heading into WrestleMania. But still, that's pretty fucking stupid. So, it was pretty much a waste of time. They added him just for the sake of star power. Led to nothing. Had no storyline reason behind it. They should have had Raw and SmackDown fighting for Cena to join their team, but Cena joined SmackDown despite the fact he was on Raw before he left late last year. So, anyway, I have no desire to see John Cena at Money in the Bank. They should give that spot to someone who deserves it. I think the Raw side is already, set. So first of all, Cena would not make any sense, because on Raw we already have Finn Balor, Braun Strowman, Kevin Owens, and Bobby Roode. And on SmackDown we have The Miz, Rusev, Samoa Joe and Big Cass have their qualifying match next week. And then, who else qualified this week? I don't remember. Oh, a New Day member. The New Day beat Sheamus and Cesaro. That's what it was. So there was not even any room for him in the Money in the Bank ladder match for the men. Unless he wants to join the women's match, which, to each their own, I guess. But for the best female star thing, no. I would focus on the current talent. I know what you're saying. It's an intriguing option if done with the right person. But with Cena, absolutely not. Won't happen anyway. The past female star thing, just focus on the women you have. There's no reason to bring back fucking Michelle McCool to compete in a Money in the Bank ladder match. Because, if I cash in, I can cash in either champion. Who gives a shit? So I hope they don't do that. Jeremy B. from Facebook, what was the point of calling up the authors of Pain if WWE has no plans for them? Well, I mean, they had done pretty much everything in NXT. I understand the frustration. I know what you're saying. I saw some people tweeting about that on Monday because they weren't on the show again. There's only so much they can do because they're not going for the tag titles right now. They just showed up. Matt and Bray just won the belts. So they're not going for the championships anytime soon. At least not until maybe SummerSlam. So what do you do with the guys? I think putting them in a feud with someone on the Raw roster would be helpful. But what teams do you have that they can be put in the feud with? Breezango? Who cares? Heath Slater and Rhino? Who gives a shit, you know? There's really not many tag teams that make sense for them to face right now. That would be like a logical feud. Because they would beat him anyway, which they should. But still, Authors of Pain versus Breezango? I mean, as a squash match, that's fine. But as like an actual feud before Authors of Pain go for the tag titles? I don't know. Raw has a lot of tag teams. Just a lot of them either aren't that good, or they have nothing going for them right now. They just have nothing going on. So anyway, with the Authors of Pain, the thing is, again, they should be doing, when they're not wrestling on Raw, they should be having promos, like building them up, like vignettes. That's what, I mean, again, Sanity has yet to show up on SmackDown, but at least they have vignettes on SmackDown, building up their eventual debut, you know? It just makes no sense to have them not on the show for like 3 weeks at a time. If they're not going to be on the show, put them in a backstage promo, talking or something, I don't know. Just having them be there, having them be there but not doing anything makes little sense. I do agree. It seems like they're just wasting their time, just boding their time until they're given a tag team feud or a tag team title opportunity. The same thing would have happened with the Revival last year when they got called up. They beat the New Day right off the bat, but that was it. They didn't do anything after that. First of all, one of them got hurt, but beyond that, it did not look like they were having any real success from the get-go regardless. With the Authors of Pain, you had to call them up. Like, why keep them down in NXT? Because they've already lost the tag team titles opportunities a number of times. They lost to TakeOver New Orleans. They lost to TakeOver Philadelphia. You're not going to keep them down in NXT, just continue to lose. So it was logical to call them up. They were long overdue for a tag team title, for a main roster run. But yeah, I do agree they should be given something to do in the meantime if they're not chasing the Raw Tag Team Championship. Speaking of tag teams, Jeremy's second question: can we send Big Cass to Raw as Dolph Ziggler's partner and have Daniel Bryan feud with Drew McIntyre instead? Yeah, the Bryan Cass feud just does nothing for me. I know I'm not alone in saying that, and I like Bryan a lot. What they did on SmackDown last night was fine. Cass seemed like he struggled with his promo, whatever. Just the guy's not that good. The guy sucks. He's the one that should be paired with Dolph Ziggler. Because if they want a big heavy for Dolph Ziggler's not the star of that tag team. If they want a big heavy for Ziggler, Cass is perfect for that role. He was perfect in that role for Enzo. And then they split him up. Because Enzo in the ring was not that good. Cass in the ring was not that good. But as a tag team, they were great. Because they worked well off each other. Ziggler is a great wrestler. But it just pales in comparison to Drew McIntyre, who is the complete package right now. So I do think that would be a better fit to have Big Cass with Ziggler and then Drew McIntyre on SmackDown. Not to say McIntyre is going to flounder on Raw on his own, but I do think he would have a much better shot of success on SmackDown feuding with Daniel Bryan, having great matches, and maybe even beating Daniel Bryan at some point. So yeah, I do think that would be a better fit. But what they have right now is not bad. Cass and Bryan, it's not a bad feud, but it just seems like a waste of Bryan. And it seems like there's heat on Big Cass anyway. They're not going to push him, so who gives a shit, you know? And with Ziggler and McIntyre, how far is this thing going to go? Are they going to go for the Raw Tag Team titles and that's it? I hope it's not too long before Drew turns on Ziggler. Because I really want Drew as like a single star. Because he shined in that Raw Tag Team match on Monday. He shined. When he was in the ring with Braun, you could see sparks flying. Because it seemed like they had something going there in terms of like a future feud between the two. So Drew is a future breakout star waiting to happen. And Ziggler is only really dragging him down. As a tag team, though, they're fine. But I am awaiting the day, anxiously anticipating the day, that Drew turns on Ziggler so he can join these singles ranks. His third question, thoughts on the B team? I think they're a fun little act. If you're not going to have the Miz Taraj with the Miz, you might as well do something with them. I mean, they're losers. But I think people can get behind the loser act. I don't know if they're baby faces or heels. For now, they're heels. They might turn babyface in time like Heath Slater and Rhino. I mean, Heath Slater was a heel who turned into a babyface because people rallied behind him. I think Curtis Axel and Bo Dallas could be similar in that respect. But yeah, I'm fine with the tag team. I think they're a good little tag team. I don't know how intriguing a B team versus Woken Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt tag team match would be. But, still, it's something. It's something. So I like the tag team. I like what they did on Raw. The B team title, the name for the tag team, it's funny. It's well done. I don't know how far they're going to go, but it gives them something to do. I'm glad they're doing something as opposed to just being fed to the losers on main event, like being fed to fucking Zack Ryder on main event. I think this is a better option for them on Raw as opposed to just floundering away. At Brad Burdar from Twitter, his question was, what do you make of the cruiserweights rarely to never appearing on Monday Night Raw nowadays? And by the way, Brad sent in these questions last week, but they're all still relevant, so I kept them for this week. So thank you to Brad for understanding because I think he sent them in after I recorded last week. But anyway, my thoughts on the cruiserweights never really appearing on Raw. It's fine. I understand they should be on Raw, but it's not like Raw is suffering without them. It does give them more exposure, but really, how much exposure? How much does it really do for the cruiserweights if they're involved in like a fucking 5-minute tag team match that no one gives a shit about? If Vince is still in charge of Raw while Triple H is in charge of SmackDown, the synergy's going to be off. It's going to be way off. The matches we're seeing on 205 Live are great. Why ruin that by just putting them on Raw and having them do what they were doing before, the dumb sports entertainment skits? No one gives a shit. You know what I mean? So I'd rather have them be their own thing like NXT on the network. Just have them be their own exclusive brand. But at the same time, I would move them to a different arena because having them record after SmackDown has killed the brand since day one, first of all. But, if they have them just be their own exclusive little thing and they don't put them on the pay-per-views, that's fine. You can't have it both ways, though. You can't have them be exclusive to the network and then put them on Raw and we see a totally different presentation of these guys than we see on 205 Live. So I'm kind of okay with it, just because they weren't really doing much. They really weren't doing much of note on Raw anyway. And if they're not going to be having the matches on Raw that they have been having on 205, they've been having on 205 Live lately, then there's no point on putting them on Raw. Just because there's no point to put them on Raw if they're just going to have forgettable matches. So what's the point? His second question: top 5 NXT TakeOver theme songs. I did a list about this, I think before TakeOver Brooklyn 2 years ago, but I mean, obviously that list is a little outdated because we've had some great songs for takeovers since then. In no real order, but these are my top 5 takeover theme songs. We Like It Loud by Sleeping with Sirens. They used that for the first takeover show, the first TakeOver Brooklyn show, I should say, in August of 2015. Great song, captured the vibe of that show perfectly. I was at that show, so I fell in love with the song, and it brings back great memories of being there at that event. So definitely We Like It Loud might be number one. Also Throne by Bring Me the Horizon. You've heard the song before during I think they used it for a Seth Rollins, the 24 special. They did on Rollins soon after, like in early 2016. But this was used for the Respect special, the TakeOver Respect show in October of 2015. They used it for something else too. I can't remember what it was. I feel like they used it for like a show or something like that. Oh yeah, they used it for a video package to promote a 4-way in NXT in late 2016. I think it was Roderick Strong, Ty Dillinger, Andrade Cien Almas, and Bobby Roode. It was a number one contenders 4-way. They used this song in the background to build up the match, and it was great. The song's really, really good. They also used it for the video package on that same Respect show for Bayley versus Sasha Banks, the Iron Woman match. That was great too. So I love Throne, great song, but an even better wrestling theme song as like a takeover theme, whatever. Could Have Been Me by the Struts I should say, for TakeOver London that December. I'm going in order of the takeovers just because, like, in my opinion, these are the takeover themes that stuck with me. That was a really fun show too, TakeOver London. Really enjoyed that show. And I thought, just again, it was perfect. It was an English band anyway, so it felt right for that show. It was a fun song, liked that song a lot. Monster by Starset. They used that for TakeOver San Antonio last year. That was a really, really good song, one of the theme songs for that TakeOver. And finally, Come and Get It by I Prevail. They used that as one of the theme songs for TakeOver Orlando. Again, I was there for that show, so I enjoyed that show a lot. I enjoyed that theme song a lot. And there's some others too. They used Serpents or something, the Serpents or whatever. That was a song for TakeOver Brooklyn 2 that I liked. What else? There's been a couple other theme songs. The theme song for TakeOver The End I thought was really, really good. Paranoia by A Day to Remember, I think it's who it's by. That's a great song too. I'm trying to think of other TakeOver theme songs. Play, I forgot who it's by, but the song Play they used for TakeOver War Games last year was really good. So there's a lot of great TakeOver theme songs. NXT usually gets it right with their TakeOver theme songs. The main roster, 50-50. Like 25-75 in terms of when they get a pay-per-view theme right nowadays. Usually it's like pop music, and it's something I don't give a shit about. But the TakeOver themes are usually really, really good. And his next question, who will be the more successful duo on the Monday Night Raw roster? Ziggler and McIntyre or Zayn and Owens? That's a good question. I think Zayn and Owens will be more successful on their own. I think Ziggler and McIntyre could be more successful as a tag team. I'm going to say Zayn and Owens just because Ziggler and McIntyre I don't think is going to last a while. Now, like I said earlier, I hope it's only inevitable before Drew turns on Ziggler and breaks off on his own because the guy is just so good. So I do think Zayn and Owens will have more success in the long term because I think they'll stick around longer as opposed to Ziggler and McIntyre. So I'm going to say Zayn and Owens, and even separately, I do think Zayn and Owens will have more success on Raw just because McIntyre will be a big star, I think. Ziggler, not so much. The time has come and gone. Time for him to step aside. At Reborn Again, John from Twitter, his first question was, which current women's champion is ruining the credibility of their brand's respective title more than the others? Carmella, Nia Jax, or Shayna Baszler? I know John is not the biggest Shayna Baszler fan. He's not the only one. There's a few people on my Twitter timeline that are not the biggest Baszler fans. I like Shayna a lot. I really do. I know she's not the greatest worker in the world, but in terms of her character and her attitude and her presence, I like Shayna a lot. I think she fits the role as champion very, very well. So, I don't think Shayna is really in that conversation. It's more between Nia and Carmella. I'm going to say Carmella. I think Nia, she's got a good thing going as a babyface. I'm not a real big fan of Nia and Ronda happening at Money in the Bank. But Carmella, I mean, again, with the mic skills and stuff, she has a good presentation. When the bell rings, though, she's not that good. Nia isn't that great either. But the Alexa Bliss match between Nia and the Alexa Bliss match that Nia had at WrestleMania and at Backlash were better than any other Carmella match I've ever seen. I have not seen one very good Carmella match. Singles match, anyway. She's just not that good. She had a couple decent matches, I should say, with Nikki Bella in late 2016. But that was about it. She's really not that good. And that match with Charlotte was pretty abysmal at Backlash. Hopefully Asuka can get a better match out of her on the next pay-per-view. Because if not, I think the writing might be on the wall for Carmella as the SmackDown Women's Champion. If the rumors are true about Brock holding the Universal Championship until WrestleMania 35, should WWE just scrap the title altogether after someone beats him for it, or can it be saved in the eyes of the fans? Well, if you're going to have a brand split, you need 2 world titles. Do we even have a second world title when Brock isn't around? Like, that's my question. If the guy isn't around, do we even really have a second world championship? Like, you might as well just have one fucking world title at this point, because if the guy's never fucking around, who gives a shit? Our main events of pay-per-views on the Raw side are just going to be Roman Reigns and Jinder for the next 6 months, so you might as well just have one world title if Brock's never going to be around. I really, 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 really hope that the rumors of Brock holding the belt until WrestleMania 35 are just people joking or making up fake news. I really hope that's not been legitimately discussed. I have not heard any reputable sources report that Brock's going to be holding the belt until next year. Honestly, at this point, it would not surprise me. They've had him hold the championship this long, which we knew he would hold the championship until at least WrestleMania 34. It's been a month and a half. He's not wrestling at Money in the Bank, probably not. So, at this point, fuck it. You know what? He should just... It doesn't even really matter. So, yeah, the title has just been beyond damaged. Balor held the belt for all of a day. Owens' reign, I like Kevin Owens a lot, but the guy was a chicken shit heel champion. Goldberg held the belt for a month as a part-timer, and Brock's never really been around. So the belt really means nothing. So if they scrapped it and went back to one world title being defended between both brands, but not scrap the brand split, I honestly would be okay with that, because it really would not be much different than what we have right now. Ideally, I would like 2 world titles if they were treated the same way, but the Universal Championship is never fucking around. If you want to do that for a couple months, I get it, but it's like, Jesus fucking Christ, the guy has been around for what, 4 or 5 pay-per-views since WrestleMania 33? At this point, who could possibly care? Who the hell could possibly care about Brock Lesnar as Universal Champion? I think it can be saved, but it's going to take a lot to make that title mean something. Like I've said before, the Intercontinental Championship is the new top title on Raw. There is no question about that. And John's next question here, what has been the more disappointing feud in WWE in 2018? Nakamura versus Styles or Brock versus Reigns? I almost said Brock versus Lesnar, but yeah, Lesnar versus Reigns. You know what? The key word there in your question is disappointing. So this is what I'm going to say. The more disappointing feud between the two has got to be Nakamura Styles. I don't really think many people had high hopes for Brock and Reigns. I think a lot of people figured it could be a good match because the WrestleMania 31 match was really good. The match at 34 sucked, but I never really had high hopes for it. Like, oh my God, the feud's going to be amazing. The fact it's been booked the way it has, actually leading into WrestleMania, the feud was not bad. The mic work from Reigns was a little weird, like, oh, I'm fighting against the system. It's like, dude, fuck you. You're not CM Punk. No one's going to buy into that bullshit. Give me a break. But the feud was okay. The Nakamura-Styles feud heading into WrestleMania was kind of a disappointment. The match was underwhelming. It was a very good match, if not a great match. But the feud was underwhelming. The feud now has been a lot better since before WrestleMania, but the whole fucking non-finish bullshit has ruined any interest I had in that feud. They had a great match on SmackDown this week, I'll give them that, but why would you have them wrestle on SmackDown to choose for a stipulation for Money in the Bank when they're going to have a fucking match in a month anyway, Money in the Bank? That made no sense to me. I thought that was so stupid. So, I think Nakamura Styles, for a feud that we really had high hopes for, and being like, oh, this is what's going to save SmackDown, it really hasn't. SmackDown's been better recently, but not because of Nakamura Styles feud, not because of the Nakamura versus Styles feud. So that's definitely been more disappointing, because I never really had high expectations for Brock and Lesnar, or Brock, there I did it again, for Brock and Reigns to begin with. So I'm going to say the more disappointing feud between the two in 2018 has got to be AJ and Nakamura. At RJ_Marceau from Twitter, his question was, thoughts on the new Braun Strowman spot outside the ring? I feel like it's won over the crowd, and is perfect for him as a babyface. I like the spot too. Braun, like, just ramming through people at ringside. Kevin Owens sells it the best. When Drew did it, it didn't really work as well because Drew's taller. It was still a cool visual, but then it led to the knocking over of the trophy that led to the trophy getting broken, which I'm a huge fan of because that trophy was dumb as hell to begin with. I hate when those fucking things get brought down to ringside but really do nothing whatsoever. They don't get involved in the storylines. They really serve no purpose, so why not just fucking get rid of it? So I'm hoping it's gone for good now that it's been broken. But yeah, I like the new Braun Strowman spot. People go crazy for it. Owen sells it like a gem. He sells it like a beast on the outside. So yeah, I like the spot a lot. People are into Braun anyway, but yeah, I like the spot quite a bit. And his second question, does Ricochet have a ceiling in WWE, or could he be a future WWE champion? I think he can be a future world champion. Again, the thing is with Ricochet, it's the main roster we're talking about here. They took Nakamura and they cooled him down quite a bit. Quite a bit. So it's not really out of the realm of possibility, surprise, surprise, that they could ruin Ricochet. I almost hope that he never gets called up just so we don't have to deal with that. Just deal with the concern and the worry and the anxiety regarding Ricochet being ruined by this company. Because the guy's a fucking star. But they've taken stars before from NXT and made him just ordinary people. I like Finn Balor a lot. He hasn't been ruined, but the guy's like, Jesus Christ, who cares? You know, he hasn't really been doing much recently. I know he qualified for Money in the Bank, but so did Rusev. And they have no plans for Rusev, so I don't think Balor's going to be any different. But that being said, though, with Ricochet, the guy's great. The only real thing I think that could hold him back are his promos, but even those are getting better. I thought the verbal exchange that he had with Ricochet or with Velveteen Dream last week, I thought was really good. It's better than any promo I heard him cut in Lucha, which, mind you, he didn't cut many promos over in Lucha Underground, but he did talk quite a bit towards the end. After, I think the second season. He talked quite a bit in the third season. He really was not that good. Didn't really seem like his voice matched his appearance. He had this little boy voice, and it was like, oh, that's his voice? Really? I was kind of disappointed. But the promos, now that I'm used to his style of speaking, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, I can buy into this guy now that he's kind of gotten better with his promos. So that's really the only thing that I think could hold him back, because in the ring, the guy's amazing. He's got a great look. He might not be 6'5". Doesn't need to be. The guy's a fucking star. But, again, could he be a future champion? Anyone can be a future champion. That really means nothing at this point. Can this guy be a future WWE champion? Fucking Mike Kanellis can be a future WWE champion. Because Jinder Mahal was a future WWE champion. The guy was a former WWE champion. Jinder Mahal. If he can win a belt, anyone can win a belt. It's all a matter of who the company gets behind. So if you're asking me, will the company get behind Ricochet as a world champion? Could they? They could. Will they? I'm not banking on it because this is WWE. They find some way to make the impossible possible. But I think he does have the potential to be a top star in this industry, and especially in WWE, if they book him properly and they don't fucking book him like a loser. At E13A, have you seen this forensic deep dive for the Bobby Lashley sit-down interview? It was a link to a thing on Reddit, basically analyzing the Bobby Lashley sit-down interview from last week. I had not seen it. It is pretty interesting, though. It's in my likes on Twitter if you want to check it out. But it's basically a full-on analysis of the Bobby Lashley interview from last week, talking about his sisters and all this other stuff. And it's well done. It's a well-put-together piece, so I would well recommend you checking it out. Again, it's on my Twitter. It's on at E13A's Twitter, but also mine because I like this tweet. At Vincent Alisar for the final question of the day. What's up with both of the women's divisions having challengers that weren't earned? So having challengers that weren't earned. I don't know. I don't know. I like Ronda. I like Asuka, but it's like, where the fuck did this come from? First of all, we already have a women's Money in the Bank. I'm not saying you can't have two women's matches on the same show, but I figured, okay, you have the women's Money in the Bank match, and you're probably going to have Bayley versus Bayley and Sasha Banks versus the Riot Squad, which would explain why they're not in why they're not in the women's match, Ruby, Bayley, or Banks. So I'm fine with them doing their own thing. That's completely okay. But it's like, do we really need one, let alone two women's title matches? That brings it up to 4 women's matches on the same pay-per-view. And that's fine. I'm not against women's wrestling at all. But it's like, book matches that make fucking sense. At least Bayley and Banks versus the Riot Squad makes sense. The women's Money in the Bank ladder match makes sense. What fucking point does Carmella versus Asuka serve? And I love Asuka. But it's like, she lost at WrestleMania. She really has not done a lot on SmackDown since she got called up or got moved over to the Blue Brand last month. She's really been a background player compared to Charlotte and even Becky Lynch. She really has not had that many matches. So why is she getting a title shot? I think she should win, because Carmella in the ring is really not that good. I don't know if she should win. I'm not really sure. I'm not really decided. But it's like, what did she do to deserve a title opportunity? Really, honestly, what did she do? Ronda Rousey's even worse, because I think they're rushing that when they don't really need to. I heard a rumor from, I think, the @WrestleVotes Twitter account, that who usually has some pretty on-point information when it comes to WWE backstage, has some pretty good insider info. They had noted on Twitter the other day that WWE did not want to waste, or did not want to go another pay-per-view without Ronda Rousey being on it. So they wanted to put her on Money in the Bank, but they did not want to put her in the ladder match. So what do? Oh, we put her with Nia Jax for the Raw Women's Championship. Fucking why? That makes absolutely no sense. If they wanted to do like Ruby and Ronda, I think that would be a lot better, to be honest with you. And there's a lot of time to build to that. You could do Banks and Bayley versus the Riot Squad in between now and then build to the Riot Squad, or at least Ruby, versus Ronda at Money in the Bank. But nope, you got to put her in the Raw Women's title match. And even Ronda said that she's like, oh, I don't deserve it. I haven't really been there this long. I haven't really been here this long, or that long, so why would I get a title opportunity? And I was like, oh, because I'm challenging you. Okay, the setup was kind of lazy. So they got some buzz from it on Monday. They had to replay the fucking segment 3 times on Raw. Whatever. But yeah, so I'm not really a big fan of that. I don't know why they're doing that. I know they want to fill out the card for Money in the Bank, but they have enough undercard acts where they can fill out the card just fine. Unless it's like a 4-hour show, which I don't think it is, nor should it be, it's fucking overkill to have 2 title matches that don't make any sense. You don't just book a title match just for the sake of fucking filling out a card when neither of the challengers have earned it. I know logic is not WWE's strong suit. I'm not new to the dance here, but it's like, Jesus Christ, they have a month until the show. They could have had Asuka beat like the Iconic Duo to earn a title shot or something. I find that very, very lazy, but hey, nothing new from this company. So that is episode 233 of #AskGSM for May 16th, 2018. Thank you guys for all your support of the show and for sending in the questions. If you want to send in a question for me to answer here on the show, be sure to tweet me on the Twitter machine @WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Be sure to find me on Facebook as well at facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but not least, be sure to leave a comment on this very video in the comment section down below, your question rather, and I'll include it in next week's edition. So all that being said, guys, enjoy the rest of your week. We will be back next week for another all-new edition of #AskGSM. Till then, I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.